Hello everyone, my name is and today I'm going to talk about monitoring Magento Frontend performance. I'm going to show you, to give you the cheat codes, and I'm not going to show you some very complex solutions during my presentation. But my point with this presentation is that I show you something simple, and tomorrow when you go at work, in 10 minutes you can set up your own frontend performance monitoring. But before I dive deep in my presentation, I would like to share a short story from a bar that I visit almost every Friday. So almost every Friday, I go to a bar to socialize with other foreigners, and apparently most of them are into the IT, they're IT professionals. And I have a friend who is a front-end developer, and he very often likes to challenge my ideas. And one evening he asked me what I've been doing lately. His question was like this. And I told him that I'm really passionate about front-end performance and monitoring and improving it. And he just made this statement that there are no problems with the performance and 5G will fix the internet and I just should give up. I should start doing something else. And so I really respect him, and I didn't want to go in some really strong argument with him. And I knew that both of us come from different places. And I already knew some statistics about how the internet has developed during the last decade. So I got the soft approach and just showed him some statistics. And yes, he had some rights. When we look at the mobile visits in Germany in 2012, we can see that we just had 4% of mobile visits. But in 2019, this number has grown to 41% of mobile visits. And here, I try to explain him that his point is valid, and this really will improve something for those people here. But I also knew some other things, and I actually wanted to ask him, are we sure that our website and our application are becoming faster when we improve the infrastructure, we have better internet, and we run our websites on better hardware? Well, I know a website which is called HTTP Archive, and this website is looking at trends in the last decade. And we can see that the page size of the median page on the internet of 2011 was 200 kilobytes. But in 2019, this size grown to 1,700 kilobytes. There are some other trends that show how the JavaScript request has changed. And we can see that we had seven JavaScript files in 2013, but 2019 we have 18 files on the website. And when we look at JavaScript size, we see that the JavaScript size has grown from 80 kilobytes to 360 kilobytes in 2009. And when we look at image size, we also see that image size has grown from 150 to 860 kilobytes. Well, obviously, we managed to push much more data, we push more JavaScript, and probably our website became more dynamic, and we see more media on the websites. But did they really become faster? And HTTP Archive can show that in 2016, the start time of the mobile median website was 4.8 seconds. But in 2019, this time has grown with 1 second, which is 5.8 seconds. So we just look at some global trends, but what we can do for our websites, how we can understand where do we stand. Well, sorry, this was some glitch. So there are two types of monitoring. We can monitor our website with synthetic monitoring and with real user monitoring. Synthetic monitoring works in that way. We run a headless browser. We point this browser to a chosen web page, and when this browser is loading the web page, it collects different performance metrics. We store those performance metrics, and later we analyze them and we do some conclusions. Real user monitoring is a bit more complex way to set up because we need to install special piece of JavaScript in the browser of every visitor of our website. And this piece of JavaScript is collecting different performance metrics. These metrics are sent to our remote location, and later we can do some analysis, and we can really understand what's the business impact of the performance on our business. So it's good. We have different methods to measure, but what should we measure? Maybe page load time, but not really, because when we look at this timeline, page load time is around 8 seconds, but there are many things happening before and after. And one thing that we may measure is when the user sees content on the page, when the first pixels start popping. Another thing in context of Magento could be when the main product image is completely displayed on the screen. This could be really interesting for the visitors of our website. We can also check when the website is visually complete and there are no more changes happening on the screen. There are 3 more things that I want to talk about, but I have to do a small demo, and I have to move to my laptop, so we also will have to do this once more. So I'm going to talk about first input delay, speed index, and page busy. So what is first input delay? First input delay is the time from the first interaction of the user to the moment when the browser is able to respond to this interaction. And in this example, I'm running some heavy computation on the main thread of the browser. And let's see what happens with the first interaction of the first input of the user. So we see that in this case it took 430 milliseconds for the browser to respond. And in the right we can see what happens when the main thread of the browser is free. So it took almost 5 milliseconds. Now let's look at speed index. Speed index is a metric which is actually a score that explains us what's the visual progress, how fast the screen is being populated with pixels. And I'll repeat this again. And we can see in left a bad speed index and in the right much better speed index. We also can measure how busy is our page. And here I'm calculating the 37th Fibonacci number on the browser main thread. And between each calculation, I'm giving 100 milliseconds break for the browser. So with red, we see when red means that the main thread is busy, and green means that the browser main thread is free. Well, how do we know what's good and what's bad performance? Google engineers came with some estimation about this, and they say that if user sees content below 1 second, this is considered as fast. And if the first input delay of a user is below 50 milliseconds, this is considered as also as fast experience. Do we have somebody from Invika here? Do you know this website? I think it's one of the...
You mean Misguided?
Misguided.com?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, I think it's in the portfolio of Invika.com. The first thing that you can
I
find.
have an excuse and a project.
Okay. Well, I run some audit against misguided.co.uk product page, and we can see that 18% of the visitors experience fast render time, and 68% of the visitors experience first interaction with the website. Well, what about Magento? Magento, we all know that Magento has no problems, right? Well, no way, I'm just kidding. And here we have two examples, one from Magento, the first is from Magento 1 and the second is from Magento 2. Do we have experienced front-end developers? No? You?
Yes, yes.
Well, let's try to understand what's the problem with Magento 1. Well, why do you guys think that we see content around the 7th second when we see that actually the HTML has arrived probably around the 3rd second? You know. Okay.
JavaScript blocks.
Yeah. So in Magento 1, in the default Magento 1 shop, we load all the JavaScript and all the CSS from the head section of the document. And this means that the browser waits the CSS to be downloaded, which makes sense to see something on the screen. But also the browser is downloading the complete JavaScript before we see something on the screen. When we do this, when we load the JavaScript in that way, it's completely blocking the rendering before the JavaScript is downloaded, parsed, and evaluated. In Magento 2, things became better because there is a different way of loading JavaScript. And also, is anyone familiar here with the Magento 2 frontend? Do you know what's this and what's happening here? No. No. Yeah, but okay, just let's look at first, actually this is the most important thing. We can see that we see content at the 3rd second. Compared to this, to Magento 1, the case in Magento 2 is much better for start render time. But there is actually something very annoying, and this happens, it's very clear on mobile network. We see the main product image around the 10th second in this example. And do we know what actually happens here? Do you know about required.js? So, Magento 2 initially loads a very small piece of JavaScript, which is a JavaScript loader called required.js. And required.js is a JavaScript loader. It starts loading all the needed JavaScript after each other. But it's very interesting that this JavaScript library that is actually Fodorama.js is responsible for the product gallery. This is one of the last JavaScript files that Magento loads. And when Fodorama.js is loaded, then the product image is being loaded. So this leads to this side effect where we see the main product image in the 10th second. Well, there are, from real user monitoring point of view, there is a way to measure those things. And in the case of Magento 1, we can check the start render time. If we use the performance, in the browser performance API, we can get the paint timing object, and then we can just read what we had there. In the case of Magento 2, we can get the performance entry for the product image. Then we can read the fetch start from this entry, and we can sum it with the duration, and then we get the very good estimation when the image shows on the screen. We know the exact time when the image was downloaded. We have a bit of overhead of decoding the image and rendering on the screen, but this is very good estimation. Well, I had worked for a merchant in the last 4 years, and in the last year we did a lot of performance improvements. And this is what happened when we just removed the third-party A/B testing JavaScript library. If we look at mobile, we can see that we reduce the start render time of mobile with almost half a second. Well, what's the point of front-end performance if we just look at those diagrams? Performance should bring some business value. And when we talk about performance in our organizations, it makes more sense if we relate some performance metrics with business metrics. And this diagram shows a really strong correlation between bounce rate and when the user sees the product image on the screen. So we can see that users that see the product image around the 3rd second bounce with 40%. And users that see the product image around 7 seconds bounce 45%. So now I'm going to show you some very simple things that you can just really easy configure, and you can get some idea of how good and how bad is the front-end performance of your web shops. But I'm just wondering, how many of you know about Chrome user experience? You know what is this? I think this is something that came last year, in the beginning of last year, and Chrome user experience is a Google service product that we know that Google collects a lot of things from you, right? Also, Google collects a lot of performance data from your Chrome browser, and this performance data is being stored in the Google database BigQuery, and they made part of it available, but it's of course anonymized. So actually, we can use this. We can read things from this database. The other thing that I want to show is very simple hack with PageSpeed Insights API and Google Sheets. Right? I mean, I told you may set up something in 10 minutes and you may get the idea. And the other thing is just short preview of a tool, open source tool that I'm working on, and it's real user monitoring. So we can see some real data, and we can see how the performance is related to business metrics. And as I say, maybe you don't know, but probably you're already monitoring your websites. Can I use Toon as example? Can we run some tests? There is a dashboard developed by a Google developer, and he made the things very easy for us. So we load this URL, we get redirected to this page, and we just have to enter here the URL that we want. Actually, not the URL, but the origin that we want to monitor. Is double URL? No. So this creates a dashboard in Google Data Studio. Let's see what we have for two. So first, content to paint means it's very good approximation to when the browser starts rendering. And we can see that in April 2019, 32% of the users experienced fast render. And we can also look at first input view. And the things in April they look pretty good. I mean, maybe there was some deployment where a lot of JavaScript was removed. So well, this is really one of the methods that is very easy and it's free. But there is a chance that if your website is not very popular, it's not in this database. Now I want to show you a very good example between PageSpeed, Google PageSpeed Insights, and Google Docs. So do you know how many of you actually use PageSpeed Insights? So we can just point PageSpeed Insight to a specific URL, and we can get different performance measurement for this URL. The good thing is that PageSpeed Insight also has an API, and we can utilize it, or maybe I would say we can abuse it. So here we can see that the start render time is 2.6 seconds. So let's see how we can do this in how we can actually use the page splitting site API. So the first thing that we need to do is to get an API key. And we need to go to the page splitting site documentation page and just to click the button Get API. We have to create a project, so maybe we can call it Magento.
Maybe give you need to use this.
Sorry?
Maybe you need to use this on this one.
Probably. Okay, so now we need to go to Google Docs. And we need to open new spreadsheet. So now here the trick is we need to click to tools and to script editor. And I already crafted a script that does the job for us. Copy paste. So we paste the script here. The target URL. And we need to paste the API key. Now we save. And here we need to create a new application, it's Google Apps Script. And let's run the function monitor. Let's see what. Well, the first time when we run this, we need to authenticate this Google application to be able to write the spreadsheet. And actually this happens every time when we do it. First time I think it's because it's a new application, we have to authorize it. And now we go run. So the first thing that the script does is just initializing the first row with column names. And it's running two tests against the target area. One for simulation for desktop, and the second one is simulation with mobile. Waiting. So we got some values. You can see that the start render time for desktop is 1 second, and the start render time for mobile is 3.8 seconds. Now we can use, we can create a diagram when we go in the spreadsheet. So we need to choose the column that we are interested in monitoring. We're going to insert chart. And now we have to edit this chart. First we can choose that we want to see smooth graphic. We can choose for the x-axis the date. And now I just want to show that we see the graphic. I'll just copy this node. I repeat it, and I will change the date. The red line is mobile, and the blue one is desktop. Well, but we have to automate this. And again, we can go to our script. We can click, and we can add a trigger. So we can choose that the trigger is the trigger function, the callback function of the trigger is monitor. The event that fires the trigger is time driven, and we can do it once a day, and we can save. And this will run. This will populate a new row every day. So this is very simple and basic monitoring that we can apply. And now I would like to show the demo of a real user monitoring tool that I'm working on. It's called Basic Run, and I'm running it on Symfony. And here I'm showing the data website that I'm monitoring. Just the data is for the period of 1 month. And we can see already, like, this is the most important diagram actually in the application, because it shows for the business how many people bounce in different vendor types. And in this case, 66% of the people bounce around the first, when they see content around the first second. And 74% of the people bounce when they see content at the second. We also can see what's the device distribution, and we also can see what is the median load time for the backend and for the start render time. And here I separated it in 3 groups: mobile, desktop, and tablet. If we want to go deeper analysis, we also can actually generate a waterfall diagram from the real data that we collected. If we want to go deeper, we have a page where we can generate more diagrams, and we can filter by device. For example, we can see what's the document ready, how things stay with the document ready for mobile. And we also can see where is the median value for all these users. We also can choose operating system. And you can see how things are for Android. And again, if we want to dig deeper, we also can apply some filters, and we can see different waterfall diagrams for different devices, operating systems, and so on. Well, this real user monitoring tool really gives much benefit for the business, because the business can actually understand their user group, and they can understand, for example, if there are many low-end devices and if these people with low-end devices have problems. I'll switch back to the presentation. So, no more demonstrations, and we are reaching the end. So let's recap. You remember the problem for Magento 2 product image that I showed you earlier? Actually, when I found this problem, I pinged the guys from Magento, and they actually told me that they already have merged pull request, and this fix may come in the next Magento release. If you want to see more trends about how Magento is doing, you can also check HTTP archive, because HTTP archive also has specific statistics about Magento. You can just go tomorrow at work and you can try Chrome User Experience Report, or you can try this small hack with Google Sheets and PageSpeed Insights API. If you want to try some other synthetic tools, you may